Barakate Hawa, Barakate Hawa Shai, Barakate Hawa, Barakate Hawa Shai, Kal Halalamla, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakan Kodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Mount Stone, and salutations to the Akim out there pushing this word in all sincerity and all truth. Peace and blessings are upon the elect of the nation of Israel, the men, women, and children whom the Lord has foreordained and chosen to receive this truth and to be among that remnant who have returned unto the mighty power Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and who will be delivered and take part in the first dominion in the kingdom of heaven. This lesson is going to be entitled something along the lines of "They that wasted us required of us mirth," right? And it was inspired by a video that was done by the Apostle Tahar. I believe the video was entitled "This video is gonna make you mad," something along that line. And it was about a 5-minute video that pretty much described the condition of our people on those slave ships. And what jumped out to me was what the spirit had me focus on. Was that the slaves were forced to sing and dance. Not only to entertain these Edomites, but also for the purpose of keeping us quote unquote fit or exercised. And then that practice continued to when we were on those slave plantations, and even up to this day. Jake pretty much entertains the so-called white man through different forms of music, different forms of sports. You realize that especially over here in the West, Jake pretty much dominates sports, dominates the music industry, dominates the entertainment industry, and that's pretty much going back all the way to slavery. So I figured I would bring out, just some information about the history of our people being forced to sing and dance, and just highlight Psalms 137 that speak about us being forced to sing, and they that wasted it required of mirth. So this article here, this first article, is from the National Geographic, and the title of the article is "African Cultural Roots Traced to Enslaved African Ancestors" by Howard Dodson, and it was posted February 5th, 2003. Alright, so I'm gonna jump down to this paragraph here that you see on the screen. It says, "On board slave ships during the Middle Passage, enslaved Africans were frequently forced to dance. Once a day, some of them were brought up from the hold and encouraged to drum, sing, and dance. Slave captains believed that dancing enlivened the captive spirits and reduced their sense of pain, suffering, and longing. Dancing was also seen as a form of exercise which helped to preserve and maintain the captive's health during the tedious voyage. Ultimately, the slave captains were not really concerned about health and well-being of their captives. Rather, they took whatever measures that were necessary to protect their human cargo to ensure that they would get a good return on their investments when the slaves were sold in the Americas. Unbeknownst to the slave captains, the daily dancing and exercise regime likely provided one of the bases for the continuity of African-based expressive culture in the New World. For rhythms and dances preserved during the Middle Passage became the roots of New World African musics and dancing. Right? Singing, drumming, and dancing resurfaced in new transformed rhythms and music in slave communities and societies, and that has continued to this day. Right? So there's another article I wanted to get also. This article is called "Dance Among Slaves" from encyclopedia.com. It was updated just a couple weeks ago, February 8th, a week ago, February 8th, 2021. Let me jump down. It says, in black dance in the United States from 1619 to 1970, Lynn Farley Emery discusses the slave owners' practice of what they call dancing the slaves. This activity occurred on board the ships transporting the slaves from Africa to America. The voyage American history records as the Middle Passage. She notes dancing was encouraged for economic reasons. Slaves who had been exercised looked better and brought a higher price. Noting the physiological benefits of exercise, slave owners forced slaves to exercise to maintain their health. Alexander Falconridge, a white surgeon on board one of the slave ships, recalled exercise being deemed necessary for the preservation of the slaves' health. They are sometimes obliged to dance when the weather would permit their coming on deck. If they go about it reluctantly, they are flogged. Dancing the slaves continued beyond the slave ships, permeating American southern plantation culture. On the plantation, slave owners forced slaves to dance under the lash, both for economic reasons and for entertainment. Slaves were danced to maintain a healthy appearance, though given the often meager conditions in which they lived, they appeared anything but. Right? Emery concludes the African slave, which were not African, the slaves that were brought from the west coast and the north coast of Africa, were Israelites, Hebrew Israelites, that were sold into slavery, fulfilling Deuteronomy 28, the 64th chapter, and other precepts that speak about us being scattered, right? But specifically being sold on slave ships, because we had sinned against the Heavenly Father and still continue to do so, right? The African slave, which is a Hebrew Israelite slave, danced not for love, nor joy, nor for religious celebration, as he had done in his native African home, which our native home is Israel, Jerusalem. He danced in answer to the whip. He danced for survival, right? So I want to jump to Psalms 137. I'll read from verse 1. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps on the willows in the midst thereof. For they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? All right. So what I wanted to focus on, was verse 3, where it says that they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth. Right. And that lines up, to the two articles that I brought out, right, which describes slaves being forced to dance not just for their health, right, so they could fetch a better price, but also to entertain the so-called white man. Right. Now, there is also something interesting I'd like to bring out from this article here, enduring.com. That's an article written on Psalm 137, which they say was written by Jeremiah, which they say is a psalm that was written by Jeremiah in the Babylonian captivity. But we know that specifically this is not just talking about the Babylonian captivity, but also the captivity that we're in today, right? Because Babylon was not revenged, by the Israelites, right? The ancient Babylon that dwelt in the modern day land of Iraq, right? So let me here we go. Let me just down here to part D. It says, sing us one of the songs of Zion. This was a cruel demand of those who carried us away captive. They asked for one of the famous songs of Zion. Those who plundered the people of God wanted them to entertain them. Yeah, that's what we read in the article, right, about the quote unquote African slaves, which are not African Israelites, being forced to sing and dance to entertain the Edomite captives, Edomite captors, right? Yet there was no song left in them. Their harps had been hung in trees. So, like tipsy revelers, they called out, sing. The request drove the iron deeper into the sad hearts, for it came from those who had made the misery. They had led away the captives and now bid them make sport, right? So it's also going into specifics of the ancient Babylonian captivity. But as we said, through the Spirit, we understand that it's a prophecy speaking about our slavery in modern day Babylon, or Mystery Babylon the Great, right? Which is why it mentions Edom, which we're going to get to, right? It says they did not sing, as the following lines will show. They could not sing, yet there was no song left in them, right? So if I jump down to the judgment, right, it says, remember Edom, right? Remember, O Lord, against the sons of Edom, the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it to the foundation thereof. So not only was Edom complicit in our downfall when the ancient Babylonians took us down, right? The Edomites were responsible also for enslavement, primarily responsible for enslavement here in the Western world, or in the New World, through the transatlantic slave trade, right? Not only for the so-called black tribes, but also for the Latino and Native American tribes that were already over here in the Americas, right? It says, remember, O Lord, against the sons of Edom. The psalmist directs his words to God, asking to remember the people of Edom for their conduct during the conquest of Jerusalem. In this case, the call to remember was a call to oppose and to judge, right? The small book of Obadiah is a prophetic pronouncement against the Edomites for their part in the conquest of Judea, right? Nor should they have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction, nor should he have spoken proudly against the day of distress, right? So that's not only that's not only referring to when the Babylonians took us down, when the Edomites were complicit with them, but also, again, like I said, with the Edomites taking us down primarily now in through the transatlantic slave trade. Race it to the foundation. The Edomites were a sister nation to Israel, having descended from Esau, the brother of Jacob. They should have supported and sympathized with Jerusalem when the Babylonians came against them. Instead, they enjoyed Israel's agony and wanted the city to be completely wasted. All right, judge Babylon, and the Babylon here that is speaking about in Psalm chapter 137, when it says, "O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed," that's speaking about Edom, That's speaking about matter of fact, it's speaking about the new America, or the new Babylon, I should say, the daughter of Babylon, right? Which is America, Mystery Babylon the Great, right? Let me see if I can get a couple of precepts talking about the daughter of Babylon. Right. Daughter of Babylon. Right. This is Isaiah 47 verse 1. "Come sit down in dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Right. Sit on the ground, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou art shall no more be called tender and delicate to his spirit." This is speaking about the new Babylon, Mystery Babylon the Great, which is America. Right. Jeremiah 50 verse 42. "They shall hold the bow and lance, they are cruel and will not show mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses. Everyone put in array like men of Babylon, like a man to the battle against thee, O daughter of Babylon." Jeremiah 51 verse 33. "For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her, yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come." Zechariah 2 verse 7. "Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwelleth in with the daughter of Babylon." All right, so this is talking about the present day Babylon, which is what Mystery Babylon the Great. Right. Let's get that. All right. This is Revelation 17 and verse 15. We start from verse 14. "And the woman, right, was arrayed with purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornication." This is America. Right? This is that woman that rides the beast, which is NATO and the EU. "And upon her head was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth." So this is that Babylon that's referred to in Psalm 137 through the Spirit, that's gonna be judged and destroyed, right? Let's read on in this article, enduringword.com. "O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed, happy the one who repays you as you have served us. Happy the one who takes and dashes your little ones against the rocks." Right? The psalmist directs his word to future generations of the Babylonian Empire, giving them notice that they themselves will be destroyed in God's judgment, and that didn't happen to the ancient Babylonians. It's gonna happen to the modern day spiritual Babylonians, which are the American Edomites. Right? It is interesting that the psalmist did not make this a prayer to God as he regarded Edom in the previous verse. Perhaps he regarded the judgment of Babylon to be so certain that it didn't need his prayer, only his pronouncement, especially in light of other prophecies. "Happy the one who repays you as you have served us." This is a blessing, right? Here what he describes it. This is a blessing on the one who brings judgment against the Babylonians, right? And a judgment corresponding to what the Babylonians served unto Jerusalem and Judea. Right? There is ample evidence that to dash in pieces their little ones was a common enough sequel to a heathen victory, and that Babylon had in no mood for restraint at the fall of Jerusalem. Right? "Happy the one who takes and dashes your little ones against the rocks." This awful blessing is understood in light of the previous line. No doubt the singer had seen this done to the little ones of Jerusalem, and the horrible image was seared upon his mind. He prayed that the Babylonians would get as they had been given. We sympathize with the impulse of the psalmist, yet the New Testament calls us to a higher standard Our response should be to recognize that our calling since the cross is to pray down reconciliation, not judgment, which is not true. Right? The reconciliation is prayed for the elect of the nation of Israel, but the nations will be judged though. Let's get from the New Testament. This is Revelation 2 verse 26. And he that overcometh, and this is Yahushua speaking, and he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. So this is the New Testament. This is Yahushua promising members of the elect that they will rule over the nations, and not only rule over them, but break them in pieces like a potter's vessel, yo. Right? So this, whoever this person is, voice or whatever, going off, yo. Right? Trying to make null the judgment of you Edomites, yo. Right? Perhaps if some other modern critics had been under the yoke from which the psalms had been delivered, they would have understood a little better how a good man of that age could rejoice that Babylon was fallen and all its race extirpated. Right? Let those find fault with it who have never seen their temple burned, their city ruined, their wives ravished, their children slain. They might not perhaps be so quite velvet mouthed if they had suffered after this fashion. Right? And we have suffered after this fashion, we people of Israelites, yo, beginning with you you native Indians, you Latinos, and you so-called blacks or niggers, yo. Right? So the other nations who had not suffered along this line may find fault with it and be velvet mouthed and say, oh no, it's all about reconciliation, no, and forgiveness. No, yo, the Heavenly Father is not about that, yo. Right? Let's jump here to Jeremiah chapter 30 verse 17. Start from verse 16. Therefore all that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. This is what the Heavenly Father has prophesied, yo. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith the Lord, because they call thee an outcast, saying, This is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. Thus saith the Lord, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tents, and have mercy upon his dwelling places, and the city shall be builded upon her own heap, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof, and out of them shall proceed thanksgiving, and the voice of them that make merry, and I will multiply them, and they shall not be few, and I will glorify them, and they shall not be small. Their children shall be as aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me, and I will punish them that oppress them. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governor shall proceed from the midst of them, and I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith the Lord? And you shall be my people, and I will be your God. Behold, the whirlwind of the Lord goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked, which is starting with you Edomites, you so-called white people. The fierce anger of the Lord shall not return until he have done it, until he have performed the intents of his heart. In the latter days he shall consider it. Right? So there's no escaping the judgment for what you have done to our people, yo. So hopefully this lesson was edifying, you know. Call halal Allah, Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai, for giving me the spirit and the utterance to do this lesson. Shalom till next time.